Hello, and welcome back to another episode of We Are Meant for More. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing to you the amazing Anna Salido. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen, for having me today.
So let me introduce you and tell the audience a little bit about you because you're amazing. And I'm just going to put my glasses on. So I'm going to read right from your bio because I like to make sure I get this right. But Anna is a self-care and women empowerment coach dedicated to helping women prioritize their own needs by creating sustainable self-care habits that allow them to thrive in both their personal and professional lives. You have a background in psychology, coaching, and personal transformation, and you've developed a unique coaching framework that blends mindfulness, self-love, and practical strategies. Sounds like your journey to becoming the self-care and women's empowerment coach began with some of your own challenges and struggles, and which is often the case. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you once
So,
again. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
yes, this will be good. Good. So tell us a little bit about you and where your journey began.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So from the accent, maybe you recognize from France. I live now in Australia. I've been here I've been there for 8 or 9 years now. So it's been a while. That's where I called home. And I would say that my journey, as in the personal development, coaching, and, self-love, self-worth started 10 years ago after a breakup, realizing that I had no idea, all of that self-worth, self-love, self-compassion, self-esteem, it wasn't part of my daily life. I had no idea what it was. Even though I was studying psychology, it felt like I had no idea what it was. It was all about, people pleasing, be the good girl, be the nice girl, like don't be high maintenance, be cool. And then after the breakup with my boyfriend at the time, it's realizing I had a lot of resentment towards him because, when you give a lot and you don't necessarily, get it in return, it's like, what's wrong with me? When, so that was really, it was the beginning of my journey, realizing that it needs to start with me. I can't just rely on people, to give me something that I can't even give to myself. And that's really where my journey, started. And the more you dive into it, the more you dig, the more you discover about yourself, the more you work on yourself. And then here we are, now that's where I am, teaching women to, prioritize themselves, because if you don't know who you are, and in the process, if you lose yourself, it happens. But go back to yourself, because you can't show up for anyone else if you can't even show up for yourself.
Oh, so good, so good. And I'm sure so many women can relate to that feeling after a breakup where you're feeling the resentment, the self-worth issues. Oh, what's wrong with me? But the particularly what's jumping out at me is the resentment because gosh, I gave so much and uh, that that anger there. Could you walk us through how that presented itself to you, like what that looked like and how you were able to catch yourself and realize, hold on, I need to do something about this because I'm not letting this take me down. Because it could take somebody down and out.
Oh, it absolutely, it didn't start straight away, when I realized that I had to work on myself, and that the resentment I had towards him, or even, then I realized, even if it was subconsciously, I had resentment towards, some of my friends, because, it's like, once again, I give so much, I'm always there for you. I would do anything for you. I would do, and I wasn't doing it, to get something in return. It's, or maybe to, to some extent, I don't know, but it's really about, how come, when you have that feeling of, emptiness, how come I never get as much as I give,
Mhm.
and that's where, and you start, so you're online, you start searching, what's wrong with me, why did I, and then you end up on some websites or blogs, and you start reading, like, and you start, it all started with me reading stories about women that went through that, and then I recognize myself into their stories, in their stories, and being like, but hang on a second, that's me, like maybe that's where I need to go. So you start, it's like the domino effect. You start with, oh, maybe I need to have that self-love, to be more, once again, if you don't love yourself, and once, it's not about being perfect, but it needs to start with me. So what does that mean, loving myself? So you go through that and you start digging and you understand, and the judgment, and then discover that inner self-talk, the way I was talking to myself without even realizing, because that inner self-talk was there for so long, it
Mhm.
was so ingrained. And then you discover the inner child, like what she needs. Do you know what I mean? So it was really one step at the time, getting closer and closer to the woman I wanted to be, and I was. It's just I needed to unleash, and to get rid of all the layers, that was there, and that I couldn't spread my wings, pretty much.
Oh, wow. There's so much to dive into there that you just said. I mean, there's so much good in all that. Um, I'm going to back up to just this piece, the self-love piece. How does somebody begin to
Yep.
love themselves? What does that mean? Like, what could that look like for somebody who that's an unfamiliar term?
For me, it all started, when realizing, the inner self-talk, that, the way I was talking to myself. So it was really about what words am I using to describe myself? What word am I, when first thing in the morning you wake up, you look at yourself and it's like, oh, look at your face. Oh, you're too big. Oh, your hair is not good again. Oh, you're not smart enough anyway for that project. Don't do it. Oh, you want to try that? Oh, you're gonna look stupid. Don't even try. Do you know what I mean? That's where I realized, for me, that self-love started really by realizing how judging I was towards myself. The things I heard as well, from my boyfriend at the time. And, but once again, I'm not here to blame him, or it's not about that, but, we were young. You don't know any better. You don't know anything else. Do you know what I mean? So it's also hard to realize that how wrong, that is.
It's all part of the journey and the process of recognizing. If we knew better, we would have done better. But I can completely relate to a lot of that. Um, and the way we talk to ourselves, this is like years of probably doing this, that I hear this from a lot of women, that that's what we've always done, very critical of ourselves, things we'd never say to somebody else.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 absolutely not. And then it impacts, yeah. And that's the thing, it's like the domino effect. And I always say it works, in the positive, but most of the time in the negative, because the way you talk to yourself, then it has an impact on your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your worth, what you think, you are worth, your values, the way you show up in the world, the way you don't show up for yourself. But then all of that, it has an impact on a relationship with a boyfriend, a partner. It has an impact with your kids. If you have kids, it has an impact on how you show up at work. It has, and that's where, my journey really, and sometimes, some women, they get scared, when I talk like this, because it's like, well, I know how long it's going to take me. And I'm like, just remember, it's not like you need to work on, like that aspect is going to take you, I don't know how long. And then you go to the next one. Everything is linked. Everything is part of your journey. So you work on one thing, it will have an impact on the other one, and then on the next thing, and the next thing. And it's a life journey at the end of the day. That's why I always say it's a lifestyle, self-love, I think we can manage, now I do manage my inner self-talk. Is it ever going to disappear? I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? I've got better days, worse days. Do you know what I mean? And it's going through the roller coaster of emotions and life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. And it isn't any one thing that fixes it, and it's never quite fixed. It's ongoing. We're constantly um up leveling and constantly working on ourselves. Um, Yet you mentioned too, it's all on the inside. So I love that.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
empowering. It's really empowering to think that we have it all inside of us.
Yeah, yes, but I think it's also, at the beginning of my journey, even when I talk about self-care now, it's not the self-care on the outside world. Don't get me wrong, I love a good massage. I love,
Mhm.
taking care of myself, of things that I can do on my outside world. But the self-care, I work with now and try to bring women into, it's really that inner self-care, the one that no one can see, not even yourself at first. You're gonna feel it. And that's where, the biggest frustration, sometimes for women is, it's like you can't see it on your outside world straight away. You're gonna feel it. But to feel it, you need to be connected to yourself. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand your body, especially as women, we have so much wisdom, in our bodies. Do you know what I mean? So there is that aspect of, it's all about, you need to feel it at first before you can actually start seeing the results, in your outside world. And when I compare, I always say it's like you want to go to the gym, you want the six pack. Well, at first, you're not going to see the six pack. It's going to maybe take you
Mhm.
2 months, 3 months before you can see it. It doesn't mean it's not happening. You need to keep going. Well, that's the same thing with that inner work, the self-care that I call, it's like that inner work.
Mhm. What does the inner work look like to you? And maybe that'll describe a little bit about what your coaching style is. But for the women that are thinking, "Ooh, I'd like to start doing some of the inner work," because we all know kind of what the outside self-love, like you said,
Mm.
the massage, the facial, but what's the inner work look like for you?
For me, and with a lot of women, and I think I think with my life where I started as well, is working on my values, because my values, they are my guidelines. That's where I make decisions in my life. That's where, you know what I mean? Because without that guideline, it's almost like your life is based on others people's opinion. It's based on what others people want. That's where, do you know what I mean? So there is that huge things as well with a lot of women, when you feel like you are living a life that it's not aligned with what you want. That can be really triggering, as well. So there is a lot of work that I do, with women around that. And once again, that inner work with the self-love, for me, that's really important, to work with that, to work with women on that. And it's really bringing them to realize how you're talking to yourself, change that, and also visualize, like there is that, for me, it's not about becoming anyone. It's not about becoming a woman. You are that woman. It's just you're not
Mhm.
seeing her. You're not, you're not giving her permission to exist. You're not. So the way I'm like, talk to me about a woman. She can be in your family, a friend, someone on TV. Just describe a woman that you're like, oh my God, when I see her, I'm like, that's she's a woman. She's amazing. And then, they start describing when the way she walks and the way she, whatever that is. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And when, do you know what I mean? It's realizing like, and I'm like, why you're not doing that? Oh, because I'm not beautiful enough. I said, here we are. It starts, the inner self-talk. You're not beautiful enough. You're not enough, smart enough, thin enough, this and that. I said, you're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect moment, the perfect situation to be that woman. I said, that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome because we'll see it in somebody else, another woman. That's for her,
Yeah.
not for me. yeah, she could do that or she could
Yeah.
have it, but not me. Yes. Why do you
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that is?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Because I do believe that we compare ourselves a lot as women,
Mm,
and there is, I think there is an idea as well of, that idea of being perfect, I'm not, and it's also, it's going back to how we describe ourselves, and
mhm.
sometimes it comes from, when you're a child, a young child. I remember a client of mine saying to me, "Oh, Anna, for a long time, from my parents, my family, my friends, I heard that, oh, you're shy." And so she started describing herself as being shy.
Yep.
And then, in her 20s, then she went to see a psychologist. She took a personality test, You believe in it or not, that's another story, but she, took the test. And then she realized, she was like, but actually, I'm not shy, at all. The test was saying the actual opposite. And then she realized, and I remember she said to me, "Well, Anna, I described myself that way because that's what I heard all my life." So then it became something, it became, yes, I'm shy. When she was like, "Actually, no, I'm not. I am more an introvert because, I get my energy by spending a lot of time by myself because being around people can drain me. But I'm not shy. I can go and talk to anyone." So, I believe, it's the way we were raised, what we heard when we were young as well, because when all your life you hear something about yourself, well, if you hear that all the time, that's because it's true. So, if you hear some, and it doesn't become, it doesn't come from a bad place, but here, like, oh, you're shy, or you're not tall enough, to wear that
Mhm.
dress, or you're not, I know you're not thin enough, you can't, don't do that, or you should be careful with that, or it becomes something. Do you know what I mean? Something that you don't have, something when you're not enough. So then when you look at other women, you see what you think you don't have.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I can so relate because I had been, always all my life been told I was shy, even introduced that way. Oh, she's shy.
Hmm?
She's she's shy. So I always and
Yeah.
I would just like your client introduce myself as shy. Oh no, not me. Don't pick on
Yeah.
me. I'm super shy. But it's like,
Yeah.
wow. And we do carry that with us. Unbelievable. What are some ways? So we if these limiting beliefs have kind of been instilled over the course of our lifetime, what are some ways that people can begin to undo that if they catch themselves? What can you do to change that?
And I think that's where, the inner child, work, you know, can start as well.
Mhm.
And, it took me a long time because studying psychology, when you hear some of the theories, when it's all about the childhood and everything is about the mom. And to be honest with you, when I was in studying psychology, I was like, I don't believe in that. For me, it doesn't make any sense. I found my way, with that work because I absolutely believe that, from the between, like the way we're born until we are 7, it's all about what we hear from parents, family, friends, people around us. Do you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
absolutely believe that, yes, there is some work that needs to be done because, yes, we are adults now. We can see that some of the things can be silly, but it's so ingrained, in us that we need to realize, like there is an inner child. Just visualize her, like it can be your 5, your 4, your 6, whatever. What does she need? And when, I asked, some of my clients, some of women I work with, they just sit there and being like, oh wow, it's just I never, like I never thought about that. And I'm like, no, because we think that now because you are a grown-up woman, like it's not part of your life anymore when it still plays out in your life, even without realizing.
Wow. If you could say something to your inner child, what would you say?
I would say, I would say to her so many things, but
I know, right?
there is, but I was gonna say the cliche of, like everything is gonna be fine or be yourself. And I would say all of that to her. But I think, as a child, it's like my inner child, not like I missed anything on that, like I think I had, like a great childhood, but I think my inner child, all we want is love and support at the end of the day. And I think that the inner work we can do now as adults, that's the best thing we can do. It's to nurture, that inner child by, I love you, you're enough, it's gonna be okay. What do you need? And to listen to that inner child with whatever fears, comes up. So I don't necessarily think I would say anything to her. I would be more, like bringing that support and that, yeah, nurturing, and that safety,
Mm.
that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, you mentioned something earlier about feeling the need to be perfect, and um, it made me think all too often we feel like we have to show up in a way that's perfect, and if we're not, somehow we're going to be found out like, oh my gosh, I'm not perfect. And I wish, and one of my goals is to get that message out there that we're not perfect. None of us are, and we're all going through stuff and getting by and just kind of keep showing up. Um,
Yeah.
but that need to be perfect is just not achievable.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And at least for myself, I know that, the idea behind it needs to be perfect. If it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. There was a huge fear as well of being seen at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm scared of being judged. I'm scared of rejection. I'm scared. Do you know what I mean? I think behind perfection, that idea, there is also a lot of fears. And if we want to get past, through that idea of I need to be perfect, we need to realize, what am I scared of?
Right. That's a great point. What's behind that need to be perfect? Yeah.
Mm, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because we all want to do, to be great in life, I think, or to be good, depending on
Mhm.
what we aim for. But that idea of I need to be a perfect mom, I need to be perfect at work. I need to show up in a perfect way on social media. I need to, whatever that is, at the end of the day, it's like, why is that, What am I scared of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, to the woman out there that's listening right now who's saying that, my past or mistakes I've made or the things, all my imperfections, that they're carrying those around. How can people begin to let go of the worry about the imperfections?
For me, and I remember it was a coach. I was, in a master class, and that coach was saying, something along the line. Now I live my life, the way I want to remember it and the way I want to tell the story, in the future. And for me, these
Love that.
days, sometimes it takes me, that's huge, and sometimes it takes me a bit of time, but about my past now, I'm like, without it, I wouldn't be the woman I am now.
Mhm.
So, I'm grateful for it now. It took me some time, some aspect of my life, it took me really some time to say, I'm grateful for it because I can see some positive or at least how it helped me to be where I am now. And I think
Mhm.
there is two ways, to see it. It's either it keeps haunting you and keep you down, or then you realize that's my past. I can't change it. It's part of who I am. It's part of my story, and I'm going to do something with it.
I love that so much. That's very empowering. I love that you said without those challenges, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. Beautiful. I love it. How do you work with women? What does your coaching framework kind of look like when people sign up to work with you?
So for a long time, I was doing, so it was the one-on-one, which I still do, but I have been working on a 4-week program called The Modern Woman, when I take, women on a journey, to learn about, setting boundaries, learning how to say no, communicate their needs, understand their needs, thrive in their life as themselves, and understand, change the mindset around, I need to be there for everyone else and everyone else, instead of, I'm gonna start with myself, because that's how it starts with ourselves. So women, I think we need to change that mindset, because, I always say, stop being nice, start being kind. Behind the being nice, be the nice girl, be the good girl, there is an idea for me of self-sacrificing. Do something even if you don't want to do it. Be nice, don't be difficult. When, for me,
Mhm.
be kind, you can still be kind, you can still be, yeah, you can still show kindness and still set boundaries and stand up for yourself. And that's my biggest, mission for women, to understand that it's not because you show up for yourself first that you are selfish, that you're not a good mom, you're not a good partner, you're not a good wife, you're not. That's actually the opposite. But to understand that, we need to change the mindset, because when it starts from a young, when you're a young girl and you hear, oh, be nice, oh, come on, like, go and play with your cousins or your siblings. You don't want to, but don't be difficult. I need you to do that. Please just go. I need you to do it. It's just, and then we wonder why, as women, growing up, we keep doing it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm laughing because I can completely recall times that I heard those same things. Yeah. Or if you were using
Mm,
something or eating something, oh, give that to so and so. Then they want it. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Where the people pleaser came in. Um, that's so great. Powerful work you're doing. Really powerful.
Thank you.
Yes. Anything you want to share with the audience that we haven't touched upon?
Not necessarily at that stage. It's more, like for the women, listening to us. I would just like to say, and most of the time when I say that to my clients, to women, and I can see they have, like, tears in their eyes, I always say to them, you are enough. Just, if there is something you need to, the biggest takeaway of, that session, or you starting working with me, is I want you to know that you are enough. You might not feel it, you might not see it yet, but just keep that in mind. And that's what I would like to, to share with the audience. Wherever you are in your journey, you are enough with where you're at, and your journey is there to, to show you something. That's your journey, that's your story, with wherever you're at, and it's gonna be okay, and you don't need to do it alone.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. So Anna
Thank you for having
Salido.
me.
Yes. Where can people find you?
Mostly on Instagram. That's where I share the most. I think it's a good way to connect. On the platform, you can text easily or reply to comments, and I think it's a really great way to connect. So it will be through my Instagram.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, to anybody that resonates with what Anna's talking about here, because this is amazing information, please reach out. And Anna, thank you again for being here. What a pleasure. What a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you to the listeners for being here for another episode of We Are Meant for More. See you next time.